Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Hopefully the signal is a little bit better today. If it's not, I'm going to kill the Wi-Fi altogether and restart it, do something to it, see if I can get it to work. But I hope everyone is doing okay this morning. I've had a little bit of administrative stuff to do this morning that has actually gone relatively well. Let me check my volume first. In addition to doing the show, I've been working on scheduling plans for September. Unfortunately, they're still intact. In fact, I've been able to get a facility in September, and I've been chomping at the bit to do it. So, the world is great from that end, from the standpoint of life. Hopefully, the world is great from your end also, wherever you are coming from. First, the little link at the bottom, again, as you all know, channel has been demonetized. You can give through Super Chat, but for those who like to give or who would want to give a donation, you could do so by the link at the bottom in the description box. That's not a push, it's just a heads up. So, now that that's out the way, why do I have an African American sprawled in the back in this kind of heroic pose, this Prometheus type pose? That's Tim Scott. Tim Scott is the great senator from the state, great state, in quotes, of South Carolina. A, he's black. You might not have known that one. And B, he's a Republican. You probably did already know that one. Or let's reverse those. You can imagine that this presents certain issues because there's an elephant in the room anytime there's a black Republican in the room, in the sense of, hey, why are you in this party and everybody else is in the other party? Now, that said, this is not an elephant that's always necessarily exposed or brought up, but every so often there are things that bring this up. Tim Scott loves America. And because Tim Scott loves America, just so you can see Tim Scott, I want you to see who he is. Watch, having different powers now. Bam. That's Tim Scott. Bam. That's me again. Because Tim Scott loves America, Tim Scott says, you know what? I don't want one American citizen or a group of American citizens going out and lynching another American citizen. Now, that makes good sense, right? We don't want the citizenry killing other citizenry. That's against the law. That's frowned upon. And we certainly don't want the citizenry going out choking, strangling, or killing other citizens. So Tim Scott, with several other Democrats, put forth legislation, an anti-lynching bill. This makes all the sense in the world. I don't want people being lynched. You don't want people being lynched. It makes good sense that us, the good people of America, want to make sure that we are not being lynched by each other. He put forth a bill. Listen to the oddness, the weirdness that's associated with him trying to explain why other Republicans don't sign on to this anti-lynching bill. It is the funniest shit ever. I saw this on Sam Cedar, and I went to the original content because I wanted to see the original video for itself. It is hilarious. He struggles. Like it's hard to get across how hard of a time he have explaining something that is the most basic, simplistic thing in the world that everybody who's watching this with a brain in America knows, but what he, Tim Scott, for political pressure and, yeah, let's say for political reasons, can't say. Let's see if you know what it is. And it's buffering again. Crap. All right. After this video, I am going to switch signals. Yeah, it just started, Mark. After this video, I'm going to switch signals to try to get a better signal. But for the time being, let's watch this. To the degree that it can be shown. Worst come to worst, I can push up the original that's unscrewed with.
Recently signed on to a bill to make lynching a federal hate crime. It's something Congress is trying to do over the past 100 years 200 times and failed. Why are you the only Republican signing on to this?
Well, I think I'm the...
You heard that. Why are you the only Republican signing on to an anti-lynching bill? Why are you the only Republican signing on to a bill that says we can't take a rope, sit around somebody's necks, on a pickup truck, drag the person down the street, tie him to a street, and hang him up? We're trying to get support for that. Why can't you get support for that in the Republican Party? Why are you the only person, the only member of Congress that signed up for that? It seems to be a gimme. Let's hear his answer. I want to
the first Republican. By the time we get this out of the Senate, there will be several Republicans, and there are some Democrats as well.
There are 26 co-sponsors, including yourself. They're all Democrats. You're the only...
Well, sometimes it's good to be first.
I love that! Sometimes it's good to be first. Sometimes it's good to be first. And only, buddy, and only. She's asking him a question that he knows, that she knows the answers to. It's for the same reason that when you have a bunch of racists marching in Charlottesville, Donald Trump is not going to go out there and repudiate them, because they're his base. They're his base. They're the creatures that are dwelling in the Republican Party. That's why. And if members of his party went out and did that, they would, in effect, be repudiating their base. Now, it's not necessarily saying that all of them are lynchers themselves, or that they're all that pro-lynching. It is to say that there may be people who support those members of Congress who just so happen to be Republican, who, while they may not be lynchers themselves, are not necessarily on board with this idea of the lynching legislation. I'm just making the point that the people who he is rubbing shoulders with have a base of supporters that are against this bit of legislation. Ergo, the Republican Party is not going to sign on to this bit of legislation. Now, you, as an African American, clearly is being asked, hey, ultimately he's been asked something different. There's a sub-point to this question. You're black and you're in the Republican Party, and you're in a party that can't even sign up to a bit of legislation that's, in all, if we're being honest, is more so focused around this idea of you, meaning your identity per se. How are you in a party that can't even support this basics of your identity, meaning not having people lynch you? It's good to be first. That's his answer. It's good to be first. Let's keep going. I love this. I love this. This is getting to the heart of why I've said it before. I am biased against black Republicans. I've been that way since I was a kid. Part of the reason is because I understand that there are some creatures in that other party that hate my guts. It may not be the totality of the party, but I understand that there are some creatures, some swamp dwellers, you can call them. Tim Scott is in a party with these creatures. Now, I've made the point that this stuff boils down more so to class than race. And if there's anything more to get that across, it's Tim Scott. That said, they're presenting him with a question of identity. And I keep making the point, it goes beyond race. It goes into this thing of class. They're asking him a question that hits home with identity. And whatever Tim Scott want to say, at the end of the day, Tim Scott himself don't want to be lynched. And he has clearly a bias in this regard, just like any person of color would have a bias in this regard. A bias not necessarily meaning it's a bad thing. It just means that this is something that you care about. The rest of his party does not. Tim Scott is being asked to explain why the rest of his party doesn't care about this very particular thing, but he does. And the thing that Tim Scott doesn't want to say is, I'm black. He doesn't want to say that. I'm black. I'm black. Yes, I'm black. Can we please get over and get to something else? Yes, I'm black. They don't want to get on this bit of legislation. I'm black. I care about this. These guys don't. Let's be honest. Call it what it is. Call it what it is. John McCain cares about being tortured because he was tortured. Republicans care about stuff when it directly affects those Republicans. Tim Scott is no different.
So I look forward to looking for ways to bring more folks on board. I think we will. The fact of the matter is that the lynching issue is an issue that we should have dealt with many years ago. It is still an issue that raises fear and trepidation in communities of color. And frankly, in any community in this nation, we should all stand together and say that lynching is a hate crime, be done with it, move on. I think we'll see a bipartisan coalition coming together on that bill.
Do you feel alone in your party on some of these issues of racial justice?
I don't. I honestly think
Why not? Why don't you feel alone?
The fact of the matter is
you're utterly alone.
At the White House was set up by the Judiciary Committee, Senator Grassley.
Let him explain why he doesn't feel alone. But she's getting at something. Look, to be fair, you can ask the question, is it fair that black Republicans are always asked these type of questions? Essentially hitting them on this point of, how are you the only African American in this party? Why are you the only African American in this party? And wanting a clear and honest answer that they never get. Because you will never get. Because it impinges on this thing of how can they be a black Republican in this particular party? And in some respects, what they would, if they were being honest, look, this has more to do with class than race. I want them to lower my taxes. I so happen to be black. I don't necessarily want that to be the thing that keeps me from getting increased profits. You can see that would be somewhat of a pariah in the community at that point, but whatever. It's what it is. He has millions of dollars. He can assuage, whatever those concerns are with those millions of dollars. They can never answer that question, though. And I've seen this question put to blacks often, over and over again, who consider themselves to be black Republicans. It is a few of them out there. And they get hit with the same type of questions. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know. But in this very specific case, he is putting forth an anti-lynching bill. So the question is very fair. How come you're the only one? Let's let him keep going.
Grassley to meet with the president to talk about specifically how the criminal justice system can be improved for those folks who are the most vulnerable in the system. That was led by Senator Grassley, whom others have said about Senator Grassley. He would never allow a criminal justice piece of legislation to leave the judiciary. And here we sit on the cusp of seeing that happen. So Lindsey Graham has led on the issues of young African-American males being disproportionately represented in the criminal justice system. Michael Lee has worked on fairness in the criminal justice system. Ted Cruz is working on that as well.
That doesn't really mean anything. I worked on a book back in XYZ. Tom worked on so-and-so and, whatever. This guy worked on a movie when he was working with a porn star. I don't know what that means. She's asking you, you're doing the anti-lynching bill. Anti-lynching bill. Who's against lynching? I mean, who's against anti-lynching? I guess you could say, who's for lynching? And you can't get people on your own party to sign up to a lynching bill. Do you understand the point of her question? How can you, with a particular identity that seemed not necessarily all that welcomed, I mean, considering you can't even get a bill saying let's not lynch people over the finish line in your party. I thought this video was hilarious. I thought this video was completely and utterly hilarious. The order of chaos. The problem I have that black Republicans seem even more disingenuous in their rhetoric than politicians. They may be hit with questions, but I haven't heard anyone answer real questions. Well, you can't answer that in an honest way and remain a black Republican. I guess, well, let me say it this way. You can, but it will look bad. It would look bad. The moment that you hit this thing of, well, yeah, there was a split in the party, and during that split in the party, African Americans went into the Democratic Party because they were welcome, whereas, after civil rights legislation, voting rights legislation, you had this Southern Southern strategy that essentially tarnish any level of idea of blacks being a part of the party. After all, if you hate my identity, why am I going to be a part of your party? So you can understand that that makes a big difference in regards to people being part of the party. You've had these attacks, which would be considered on race. The Willie Horton ads being another example of those things. The soft racism that Romney did, the people being eaters and all this other stuff. They're dog whistles that take place in the campaigns. And you have some people who are whites who say, oh, those aren't dog whistles. Okay, fair enough. I'm highly doubtful of that, but I think there are dog whistles. I think these things are political stunts. Donald Trump read somewhat of an openly, brazenly racist campaign and just said it, as opposed to it being a dog whistle. He just said it out loud. I think Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers. So what the fuck? He said, did that guy just said, I think Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers? And you had a group that responded like, yes, 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 screw this dog whistle stuff. Let's get to the real, utter, unvarnished. That's what we like. That's what we like. How do we explain any support? No. I don't think all of the supporters that way. No. I don't think that. Look, Trump has black supporters. Trump has Hispanic supporters. Trump has supporters across the demographics. You have some people who care more about the economic well-being than they do about the racial stuff. And they don't see the racial stuff as being as overt. I would say this. There are two things that work. Yes, I do think Trump is racist. B, no, I don't necessarily think all those things were espoused from a standpoint of policy. I hope that makes sense. There's a difference in those things. And just because he ran a campaign that way doesn't necessarily mean that all of his supporters are that way. That's the second thing. Democrats want to make it as if all of his supporters are racist and sexist and all this other nonsense. Utter nonsense. Utter nonsense. You can have multiple things at work. It is not all of one or the other. You can have a situation. Trump has Hispanic support. I mean, granted, it's not a huge amount, but he has it. And they don't need a huge amount. You just need enough to crater the Democratic Party's chance of winning. Meaning the numbers that he was getting was more than Mitt Romney was getting. Even though he's talking about support, deporting all these people and whatnot. So both things can be true. I guess that's what I'm saying. It doesn't necessarily mean that all of his supporters are that way just because the person who's running is that way. There's a difference. Dark Rose left. I'm not white. I care about the money, but ain't gonna vote for Trump. Yeah, I wouldn't vote for Trump either. A low info, high pop culture society was absolutely ready for someone as dumb as we were. Yeah, I mean, but if you look at it, look at the two choices. You had Trump and you had Clinton. I didn't have a person to vote for. I voted for Jill Stein. The selection that people wanted was out of reach. Meaning, when people finally came around and realized, oh, there's a Sanders choice. Well, it's too late. He had already gone through many of the states. It was a non-choice, yeah. It was a non-choice. The vast majority of politicians are slimy and won't answer real questions. Yes, it's true. A group not answering one question isn't that odd of a duck. That's true. That is true, but the questions that he's not answering are somewhat difficult to answer because people already know the answer. It's one of those things of you're not answering a question that everybody who's in the room and everybody who's looking at this and reported to actually the question already knows. They're not supporting the bill because their base, at least in the minds of their base, is going to be affected by the bill. Let's say not necessarily affected, but at the very least doesn't like the legislation. Not that all of them are lynchers, but they understand that this goes towards, let's say, white mobs of sorts. Americans are misinformed and underinformed. It is not a question of intellect. Both. Both are true. I mean, I guess I would argue the question of intellect is how your society is raised kids. But yeah, we're dumbed down. The Fox lady just kept trying to prod him into saying it. So I have an interview that I want to show with Ari Melbourne between Eric Dyson. I saw this interview several days ago. And I was going to do this interview. I didn't want to listen to it because I don't necessarily like the woman that's arguing on the other side, nor am I a big fan of Eric Dyson. So you can imagine me looking at this was like, I don't like anybody on this channel. But nevertheless, I'm going to take a look at it on the very next video. Granted, the black Republican is going to stand out more. Yeah, if 1% of the party is black, but black people also compare 13% of the U.S., they're overrepresented in the GOP party, then that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, you have like a Republican Party, you have a meeting, let's say you have 1,000 people and you have 3 people that are black, and the media says, hey, how come you're the only one that's here? And then they get pissy about the access. All right, let's see. Give me 1 second. Someone gave a donation and I want to give acknowledgments. I try to give acknowledgement when someone gives. And I'll end the show on that. I just thought that was hilarious. Like, I'm looking at him trying to answer this question and I'm like, dude, everyone already knows the answer. Everyone already knows the answer. And it's made funny because you can't give a straight answer. It's too uncomfortable to give a straight answer. To be fair, that's the name of the person, by the way. To be fair, the Democrats aren't giving them a great alternative. Do you want to die from being hung or die from decades of income inequality and systemic, endemic, unaddressed racial discrimination? If there was a viable Labor Party in the United States, yes, if there was a viable Labor Party in the United States, only if. That's true, and it's fair. I guess the point to this is, there's been a specific piece of legislation. Democrats have signed on to it. He signed on to it as the only Republican. And the question becomes, why are you the only Republican that signed on to this bit of legislation? And the real answer to that is, there are some swamp dwellers that are in our party. We have members of Congress who, though themselves may not necessarily be this way, garner support from people that kind of are. And they don't want to sign on to the legislation. That's the honest answer. Part of me would have more respect for him if he just said that. But he can't say that. He can't say that. He can't say that for the same reason Ocasio-Cortez molds herself slightly to Democratic positions. Is lynching happening? How about passing the legislation? That's the part that's weird. Like, it's just sign on to the legislation. I don't see how this hurts the Republicans. I don't think there's any contingency out there that's pro-lynching, but for whatever reason, there is a symbolic effect to this that they don't want to sign on to. So, all right, I'm going to end this because it seems like this is behaving weirdly again. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the patron. And I need to figure out what's going on with the Wi-Fi. Thanks, guys.